J Press in front of the winery, or the ex-winery in Boonville. And I resented that. I continue to resent it, and I tend to be a little skeptical of all the fine things that we say at these meetings. I'm thinking here of when we talk about Mac and your efforts here to raise these animals and so on and so forth. My wife produces organic pigs, she produces organic cheese, she produces chickens and turkeys and so on and so on and so forth. And we sell them to friends, okay? Precisely because of the regulations that come down. And so when we talk about fast food or slow food or any kind of food in Mendocino County, it's a small network of people who keep it going, and that is good. But it's just a matter of time until somebody decides that they think that organically grown pigs need to be taken care of in a different way, more industrially acceptable way, as you well know, before it comes down. Moving very quickly to one other point. Johnny talks about water, and one of the things here that we run into in Anderson Valley is the lack of facilities for water and for sewage when it comes to putting in moderate affordable housing. Well, we've got Microfor up the road here, turning out equipment there, and has been turning out equipment here for decades that is used on ocean-going ships to handle waste and so forth. And it has been said that they can produce something that can handle 5 to 10 houses. Except that, once again, our planning department says, wonderful idea, except the state won't even give us an opportunity to do an experimental pilot project in this setting. So when we talk about what we can do at the local level, I think we are making a big mistake here if we let our enthusiasm carry us forward. We were talking 30 years ago about biomass plants here and up in Willits, their district. A lot of inventive, creative work being done there. And I'll come to my final point here. I find it kind of ironic as we talk about all these economic development items here, but we keep off in the taboo area. There's a taboo area over here. It's like we can talk about everything except when we talk about economic development. And Johnny, I wonder, and I can tell you about the 5th district, but I wonder about the 3rd district. But when we talk about economic development in Mendocino County today, it starts with the letter M, and I won't even embarrass you by talking about something that is colloquially called, starts with the word W for weed, okay? And then talking about the things we want to eradicate in our vineyards. So my point here is I think you're, realistically, Mendocino County has got to start talking about in economic development terms. This is probably kind of part of my irritation here today, looking at this. We have to start talking about state regulation, and we've got to start talking about the fact that marijuana is a major industry in Mendocino County, and over the long or short run, whatever happens on whatever measure is on the ballot out there, it is going to remain. We're not talking about this. It's like talking about religion, but pretending that we can't, but saying, well, we can't talk about God, or we can't talk about a higher being, or we can't talk about worshiping insects, whatever. So I think we really need to be a little more realistic in this whole thing, and I think the presentation here, a whole bunch of really interesting things. One of the things here that we're talking about wines, and the wine industry and labeling and developing an item here. I have a friend who keeps saying, why can't Mendocino County turn out an $11 bottle of really good wine? And then we'd have no trouble selling it. Say, but that's not the way it works. But that is part of this problem here in some of the markets that we're in. We're up against so many different kinds of wines, so many ways of marketing, and so many advantages if it's only closeness to the cities and closer to having the kind of infrastructure for the wine industry that we don't have here. And I think that the efforts that have been made here in the last few years have been really very, very worthwhile, and certainly support those kinds of undertakings, but I'm really, at the same time, concerned about the foods and the production of the things that we need to deal with under the regulations we have to live with. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Christian?
Well, I wasn't going to go there until David brought that up, but, you know, like just a year ago when I first come on the board, we had a economic, through the general plan update, we had the hired consultant from the county on the general plan update tell us at a meeting at the conference center down here, just I believe it was last March, that one of the first things he put up there on the slides was 2/3 of Mendocino County's economy is the marijuana industry. So you can't ignore that when you're talking about economic development. David's exact, and I'm not going to go there anymore. But just a further comment that on Alioti's in San Francisco at Fisherman's Wharf, there's only one Mendocino County wine on the wine list there, and it's from a vineyard in Laytonville, the Elder Springs Ranch in Laytonville. So we do have good wine, and I think there's only 3 vineyards I know in my whole district that we are at the top of the list in San Francisco.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you very much, and we're hoping you're sticking around for when we get the discussion going. Yeah. So our next panel is, oh, you've got your own, wait a second. He brought his card. We have an abundance of computers here. Anyway, the next panel here is talking about tourism in Mendocino County. So we're trying to get the range, and I guess since David brought it up and then John commented on it, I will simply say in terms of marijuana, I don't think anyone thinks about Mendocino County economy without realizing that our sense was that you did spend a certain amount of time discussing it in the last year and thought that you might want to focus on some other aspects. But I did think that perhaps as a result of today's presentation, in whatever direction you gave us, that might be something that you would consider in how you wanted to look at things going forward. So just wanted you to know that it's never forgotten. Anyway, we now have the Mendocino County Promotional Alliance, and that's Scott Schneider and Olivia Atkins, and they will be talking about tourism in Mendocino County, and I think that it's a chance to kind of juxtapose that discussion and the marketing aspects of it that go along with it, with the panel that just occurred.
Alright, so again, my name is Scott Schneider, and today I'm representing the Mendocino County Promotional Alliance, and more so just the promotional community within the county. And with me is
Olivia Atkins, Project Manager of the MCBA.
And today we're just going to briefly, I know we're kind of late on time here, talk about the overall benefits of the travel industry. Talk a little bit about what the state is doing, because I think it's very exciting on that level, and then I'll of course talk about what's happening within the county, and then briefly go over some of the challenges that we have to face and eventually overcome. I want to base the presentation on what's called the iceberg effect. Briefly, what you see above the water are the dollars that come into the county from outside visitors. These are the dollars spent at hotels, restaurants, shops, etc. But a majority of the effects